Welcome to the second module in FSHN101. One of my colleagues, Bobby Crowley, helped me write this PowerPoint on the influences on food choice. And we have a long list of learning objectives here. Just know that we're going to be covering about a learning objective per slide, so this isn't going to be much longer of a PowerPoint video than some of the other ones. So with our first learning objective, we're going to be discussing nutritional adequacy. But you might say, well, okay, what is nutritional adequacy? Well, nutrition is gaining sustenance from food. And adequacy means enough of. So if you are putting the two together, you're getting enough sustenance from the food that you are consuming if you have nutritional adequacy. We also want you to understand what a healthy diet is. And we've got 5 characteristics of a healthy diet. We have adequacy, variety, balance, moderation, and nutrient density. But just merely stating these words isn't going to help you as much as defining them for you. So what is that meaning of each one of these 5 terms? Well, adequacy means getting enough of the nutrients. Variety means eating different foods every day. You don't want to have the same breakfast, the same lunch, and the same dinner every single day. We also want balance. We want to eat foods from all of the food groups that are outlined on my plate. But you might say, Toni, I've looked at my plate and I noticed that they have a dairy group and I don't want to consume dairy. Do I have to consume dairy? Well, in reality, just make sure that you understand what nutrients are high in the dairy group. For example, protein, calcium, vitamin D are going to be nutrients that we want to make sure we get by consuming that dairy group. So long as you choose other foods that are high in calcium, protein, and vitamin D, either collectively or as an individual food, you should be fine with that balance. We also want moderation. We want to eat foods in proper proportions. We don't want to have 4 servings of Brussels sprouts. Even though Brussels sprouts are food that is nutrient dense, meaning it contains fewer calories and a lot of vitamins and minerals, if we have too many Brussels sprouts, we're going to have problems with our intestine, possibly bringing on flatulence, gas, and diarrhea. If you're trying to remember the 5 characteristics, you can remember all veggies bring more nutrients as a nice little acronym. So let's test your knowledge. Joe is a 23-year-old archaeologist that's having lunch at his most recent dig site. Every day, Joe packs himself an appropriately sized lunch with a mix of all different foods daily that are coming from all food groups. Also, his lunch is high in calories but low in nutrients. Which characteristic of a healthy diet is Joe lacking? Well, based on the definitions, is it nutrient density, variety, moderation, balance, or all of the above? If you said A, or nutrient density, you are correct. His lunch is high in calories and low in vitamins and minerals, therefore it doesn't meet that characteristic, nutrient density. If someone is having a diet that is not helping their health and well-being, we can refer to this as malnutrition. Mal means bad or poor. And when we talk about malnutrition, we have this poor or bad connection between nutrition and health. This is a person who's consuming too little nutrients. They can be malnourished, but even individuals who are consuming too many nutrients can be malnourished. If you're having too much sodium in your diet, that can cause an issue with your health and well-being. So some examples of malnutrition might be an infant consuming 10 times the recommended amount of phosphorus. Let's say the infant formula company made it a critical error and they had a decimal problem, and now all of a sudden the formula has 10 times the recommended amount. That can cause an issue with malnutrition. We can also say that a mother who consumes 3 times the amount of spinach that's recommended in one sitting, they might be setting themselves up for malnutrition as well. And we also have a boxer who's trying to lose weight and they only consume 500 calories or less per day. They might be struggling with malnutrition. Even someone who's a teen cutting out all their fat intake so they can lose weight, that's something that's not healthy. They're likely struggling from malnutrition. When we're talking about nutrition, we want to understand some daily recommended intake values. So here we have this daily reference intake, and this is the reference for healthy individuals with respect to nutrition intake. And on the graph over here, you can see we have the risk of inadequacy, the risk of excess, and increasing intake as we look at the x-axis. So if we have too little intake, we have a risk of inadequacy. If we have too much intake of something, we have a risk of excess. The EAR is the estimated average requirement. This is the average nutrient consumption level for about 50% of healthy individuals. We also have what we refer to as the RDA, the recommended daily allowance. And this is the amount of nutrients that's adequate for most healthy individuals. So again, 95% or more of those individuals. Then as we consume more and more, we have what we call the UL, or the upper tolerable intake level. And this is the most nutrient intake a healthy individual can consume with minimal chance of harming their health and well-being. So you can see with this daily reference intake table, and we have the summary of the EAR, the RDA, and the UL, all giving us an indication of how much we might want to consume of various different nutrients in our diet. In fact, we use the EAR, RDA, and UL in order to make recommendations that show up on your nutrition facts panels of the foods that you consume. If we're looking at energy intake, we have an estimated energy requirement, and this is the estimated number of calories that you need to consume to maintain your body weight. For men, we have the calculation that's outlined here. We don't have you calculating it on your own because there are very easy ways to calculate it by just clicking a button on a website. But we do want you to understand where these calculations come from and what some of the differences are. So we look at men versus women, you'll notice that women have a much more modest calculation, so the number of calories that they would need to consume per day is lower. So if we look at these values, we want you to note that age is in years, weight is in kilograms, and height is in meters. So let's talk a little bit more about calories. Calories are the energy in your food itself. If we're looking at the calories in food, they're going to be coming from the 3 macronutrients. Carbohydrates, more specifically digestible carbohydrates at 4 calories per gram, protein at 4 calories per gram, and lipids or fats at 9 calories per gram. These 3 above are what we refer to as our macronutrients. We need them in larger amounts and they contain calories. We also have water, which we need in larger amounts, but because water has 0 calories per gram, we don't consider it a macronutrient. So let's test our knowledge with a question. Justine is a chemical engineer that has decided to start tracking her calories that she will consume per day. For breakfast, Justine decides to eat a delicious looking donut that contains 30 grams of digestible carbohydrates, 2 grams of protein, and 10 grams of fat. How many calories will be in the donut that Justine is eating? Is it 176 calories, 218 calories, 645 calories, or 472 calories? And the way that you can calculate this up is you can take the 30 grams of digestible carbohydrates, multiply it by 4 calories per gram to give you 120 digestible carbohydrate calories. We have 2 grams of protein, which is going to be 8 calories from protein because protein has 4 calories per gram. And then we have 90 calories from fat because we have 10 grams of fat at 9 calories per gram. So add those 3 up and check out your answers. Let's do another question. Lauren's 35th birthday is today, and she decides to eat a large slice of chocolate cake. In Lauren's slice, there are 35 grams of digestible carbohydrates, 3 grams of protein, and 7 grams of lipids. What percentage of calories in Lauren's cake is composed of lipids? Well, what I want you to do is calculate up the total calories and then divide the lipid or fat calories by total calories and round to the nearest percentage. So when you do that, is it 6%, 14%, 65%, or 29%? And for this part of the video, I'm not actually going to tell you the answer. And the reason being, I want you to be able to assess whether you're doing these calculations correctly by looking back at some of the videos we've provided. If you still have questions and you're still doubting yourself, I want you to stop in the virtual tutoring center. I want to make sure that you are walking through this with us real time if you have any doubt that you may be incorrect. And when we talk about the macronutrients, they have several roles. First, we have carbohydrates. Next, we have proteins, And third, we have our lipids. With our carbohydrates, these are essential. If we're not consuming carbohydrates, yes, our body might make carbohydrates to maintain blood glucose levels. However, we might see other functions compromised, such as there's research showing that animals who have very low or carbohydrate deficient diets might actually have problems with reproduction, especially in the females. We also have carbohydrates falling in the category of a macronutrient. Carbohydrates are relatively inexpensive, so if you're on a budget, having healthy carbohydrates like whole grain breads, whole grain pastas, and some legumes that are going to be high in these carbohydrates are going to be able to allow you to cut your cost of foods while still meeting your needs. Our dietary carbohydrates that are digestible contain 4 calories per gram. Our proteins are also essential. Proteins are also a macronutrient. However, if we have animal proteins, these can be relatively expensive. Our proteins also contain 4 calories per gram. If we look at our lipids, we have select lipids that are essential. Again, lipids can also be referred to as fats, and so we have essential fats, such as fats that are found in cold water fatty fish, walnuts, flaxseed, and other food inputs. Lipids are also a macronutrient. Lipids could be expensive, or they could be inexpensive. It depends on the source of the lipid itself. And in contrast to carbohydrates and proteins, our lipids contain 9 calories per gram. We have the Nutrition Facts panel, which is in the process of changing at this time. In your cupboards, you may have an old Nutrition Facts panel on select foods and a new Nutrition Facts panel on other foods. So you may wonder, what has changed when we compare the old to the new Nutrition Facts panel? One thing is the headliners. When we look at the headlines, you'll notice that they're a little bit larger in the new Nutrition Facts panel. We also have the daily values. With the daily values, this is the exact same food that we're comparing. You'll notice that the total fat is 8 grams in the old panel versus the new panel. However, the percent daily value has changed a little bit. This is because we've updated the percent daily value, or the grams or milligrams of different nutrients that we would want individuals to consume on a daily basis. If you have a really old label in your cupboard, you might not even have trans fat on that label, whereas our new labels do have trans fat. It's a requirement. So even though we're starting to decrease or even ban ingredients that have trans fat as a component of them, we still want to have it on the label, reassuring customers that yes, this food is low or does not have any trans fat in it. In contrast to the old label where we just had sugars reported, the new label tells you how much of those sugars is coming from added sugars, meaning if we have total sugars at 10 grams and added sugars are 5 grams, that means the remaining other sugars might be natural sugars. With protein, in some old labels, they might have even said that there was a percent daily value for protein. This isn't the most accurate way to report protein, therefore, in the new labels, most of them should not have the percent daily value on there because the amount of protein that you should be consuming is based on your physical activity as well as your weight. And the footnotes might be a little bit different. You'll notice in the new panel, they're shortened a little bit. Additionally, you can see that the type of vitamins and minerals that are represented in the footnote are going to be different. We've got vitamin A, calcium, vitamin C, and iron in the old panel, where vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium are in the new panel. This is because we do an evaluation of what the most critical nutrients are, as far as the micronutrients, that might be causing some health concerns or disparities within the U.S. population. So, years ago, it was vitamin A, calcium, vitamin C, and iron. Now, with new evaluative materials, we're finding out it's vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium, so we want you to focus on those. With our Nutrition Facts panel, it first originated in 1994, and again, we've had a really recent update in 2016 with a rollout closer to now. And you might wonder, why are there still old labels on the market? Well, in reality, if the company had printed thousands and thousands of the old labels, they could use them until their stock ran out. So question, which of the following is incorrect about the updated Nutrition Facts panel? A, the headers are different between the old and new panels. B, sugar rows have not changed. C, the daily value has been updated on the new panel. D, the sodium row has stayed the same. So the thing that is incorrect are that the sugar rows have not changed. Those have actually changed. So let's look at a label and interpret what's going on. You'll notice that the percent, which we have circled in green there, is recommended amount of the nutrients to consume per nutrient and serving in a food product based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Some examples: if we have sodium in this particular food, we have it at 360 milligrams, which is 16% of the daily value per serving. Dietary fiber in this food is listed as 2 grams, which is 7% of the daily value per serving. And you may note that one limitation is that not everyone follows a 2,000 calorie diet. I'm a 5'2" female in my late 40s, so I should be consuming less than 2,000 calories a day unless I'm very physically active. And you may wonder, well, what is this food label? If you look at the ingredient list and you look at the nutrition facts panel, you might be able to figure out that it's some type of bread product. It's actually breadcrumbs. So if we look at the dietary guideline and we have an overview, these have recently been updated for 2020 to 2025. The top 5 updates that we're noting with the dietary guideline overview are that we want individuals to limit added sugars and saturated fat to 10% or less of daily calories for children 2 years and older. We want individuals to limit sodium intake to 2,300 milligrams or less per day. We want individuals to limit alcohol consumption to 2 drinks per day for men and 1 drink per day for women. These guidelines are providing guidance by stage of life. And we have the major focuses on choosing variety, proper portion sizing, and nutrient density. When we look at the front of a package, there might be some claims on there. There might be a nutrient content claim on there, or a health claim. But if you don't know the difference between the two, it can be a little bit hard to interpret. What is the difference between a nutrient content claim and a health claim? Well, a nutrient content claim is a claim about the food, and the health claim is a claim about a health condition. The nutrient content claim and the health claim are both regulated by the FDA. Examples of a nutrient content claim are high or low in a nutrient such as protein or sodium. Excellent source of a nutrient or subnutrient like fiber. Reduced, so you might see something that is reduced in saturated fat. Examples of health claims are calcium decreases the risk of osteoporosis. Fiber in this product reduces the risk of heart disease. DHA, omega-3, supports brain health. And we want you to know that your food choices have an impact on your health as well as your well-being. When we talk about food and health, food gives us nourishment. And like we noted, malnutrition can have negative impacts on our health. Some examples: excessive intake of simple sugars impacts the likelihood of type 2 diabetes. Sodium intake can increase blood pressure in select individuals. Calcium, protein, and water intake can have a direct impact on kidney stone formation. Insufficient protein intake can lead to kwashiorkor. So we have lots of different things that can happen. And if you're unfamiliar with the term kwashiorkor, it is where someone is consuming appropriate amounts of calories and other nutrients, but not enough protein, so they start seeing a protein deficiency alone. When we're consuming the food, sometimes it's available to our body more readily than other times. Bioavailability is a term that we will use to describe the amount or percentage of that nutrient that's available to our body or our cells. So when we're looking at bioavailability, how much has been absorbed from that digested food product? How much has gotten into our body? And there are things that are going to influence bioavailability. The shape and size of the vitamin or mineral, for example. How much fiber are you consuming? What is your biological status? Are you deficient in that particular nutrient, or have you consumed an excess of it? That will actually have an impact on it. As well as you can have molecule-to-molecule interaction, whether it be positive or negative. We've got lots of influences. And if you're interested in learning more about this, I encourage you to check out another class, FSHN101, which is Contemporary Nutrition here at the University of Illinois. With our vitamins, these are essential micronutrients that are needed in small quantities, and every single vitamin is essential. With our vitamins, they can come in 2 different forms: water-soluble vitamins and fat-soluble vitamins. Water-soluble vitamins are just that. They're water-soluble, which means they're going to be absorbed directly into the blood itself. They're regularly excreted in the urine. Examples of water-soluble vitamins are vitamins B6 and vitamin C. Pretty much all the B vitamins are going to be water-soluble, as well as vitamin C itself. With our fat-soluble vitamins, these are absorbed into the lymph nodes and then into the blood itself. They're easily stored in the body in adipose tissue or fat tissue, and examples of fat-soluble vitamins are vitamins A, D, E, and K. So let's ask a question. True or false? Fat-soluble vitamins are regularly excreted in the urine. Well, if you think about the definition of fat-soluble vitamin, it would make sense that these are not regularly excreted in the urine. They're soluble in lipid or fat tissue, and urine is mostly made of water. When we discuss our digestive tract, let's focus on the mouth, the stomach, and the intestines. When we're discussing the mouth itself, we've got mechanical digestion, which means it's almost acting like a blender. We've got our teeth and our tongue, which push food around. We have chemical digestion, which means that there's an enzyme involved. For example, salivary amylase is an enzyme that's going to be active in the mouth, and it's going to help break down carbohydrates such as starch. This is the first place that we have mechanical and chemical digestion occurring. However, primarily we're only having chemical digestion of starch. Very little other chemical digestion is occurring in there. With our stomach, we have more mechanical digestion. We've got mixing, we have churning. We also have chemical digestion by the protease pepsin, which allows us to break bonds between amino acids that build protein in the body. The stomach is extremely acidic, which helps denature that protein or unwind it, allowing for better enzyme action to cleave the peptide bonds between the amino acids that build that protein itself. Very little other digestion is occurring in the stomach by chemical means. We have two different types of intestines. Our small intestine, which is pink right in the center of this image, and our large intestine, which is that tan loop that goes around. With our small intestine, we have mechanical digestion, like segmentation, which divides and mixes the digesta. Then we also have peristalsis, which moves digesta in one direction from point A to point B to point C. We have a lot of chemical digestion happening in the small intestine itself. So we have the pancreas, which secretes a lot of enzymes into the small intestine, and the small intestine itself also produces enzymes to help break down our macronutrients. Within the large intestine, we don't have any new enzymes that are going to be taking effect in there. So very little enzymatic digestion occurs here because most of the digestion and absorption has occurred by the end of the small intestine. The large intestine is more like a victory lap where we might absorb water, some minerals, maybe some vitamins, but the macronutrients are not going to be very heavily affected in that large intestine. You may have heard me throw around the terms digestion and absorption, but you might wonder what the difference is between the two. Well, digestion only occurs within the digestive tract. We've got mechanical and chemical digestion, like we had discussed earlier. This is an energy-intensive process. Absorption occurs mostly in the intestines. The nutrients, electrolytes, and water move from the lumen of the small intestine, or the inside of that small intestine, into the blood and then into the cells for use or storage. There's very little energy used with most absorptive processes because most absorption is very passive. So think to yourself, what's an example of digestion and where does it occur? There's lots of answers to that particular question. And with that, if you have any other questions, know that we're here to help you. I strongly encourage you to stop in the virtual tutoring center or into my office hours so we can help you personally get any questions you have answered or even investigate the topic a little further. We're here for you.